questions.
Yes, I think that's a long question, longer than we have time to answer here, but let me offer you a couple things. You have to learn to be able to, no matter what strategy you're using, estimate the repairs, so you know what needs to be done, and estimate what ARV, the after repaired value, what it's gonna be worth when it's done. With those two things are certainly the two most important things in the process. I will tell you that we have a brand new subgroup meeting. I would have told you this if could finish my announcements, but unfortunately Zoom had other plans. A guy named Mike Agins is going to run it. Look, it's not on the calendar yet, but it will be for June. And it's called Analyze My Deal. So you can, if you have a property you're looking at, you can bring it and he will look at it and analyze it, and you can watch other deals get analyzed. So that should be really, really helpful to answer your question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfectly. Like for the first step, I thought if I know some good contractors, they can help me with with the repair estimation.
Absolutely. And that brings me to another good point. Well, you're probably just joined, but we have a new investors subgroup meeting on Zoom, and that's taught by Lionel Finley, and he takes new investors through everything step by step. And one of those things is building your team, which includes what you just said, getting contractors and such. And that is invaluable for someone like you. And I think he has like 7 segments, if I'm not wrong, but they repeat. So anytime you join, you're not missing anything. He goes through those 7 topics, repeat, repeat, repeat. So definitely do that, and definitely go on the Analyze My Deal.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here, and thanks for introducing yourself. If there's no one else that has anything, I'm gonna let Mike take it over. I don't know what's going on with Kevin Leonard. He keeps coming in and getting booted out. I think Zoom
Uh,
really is having some problems tonight.
so I do have a follow-up, one quick. So the second step that you told about to get an estimation for after repair value,
Yes.
is it some real estate agent can help with that? Or
Absolutely. That's another part of building your team. But you know what? There's a lot of other ways. So not to take up too much time with it. As far as estimating repairs, we have 2 or 3 times a year a workshop that teach you just to a T how to do that. Watch for different subgroup topics on it. And as far as ARV, yes, a realtor can help if you get a realtor on your team, but there are tons of other tools that you can do that, from county websites where you can get comps to a really great program is called Connected Investors. And if you go on our vendor page, we have a discount for our members that saves a lot of money. And we have a Zoom meeting once a month to go through it with people and teach them how to use it. It's one of the very best tools for finding off market properties and getting comps for them. And there are free tools and there are paid tools. There's so many tools, and it just, depends on where you are and what you're looking for. But we have resources for all of that. So keep on doing what you're doing and keep on asking the questions. And
thank you.
thanks again. Okay, Mike, you want to roll?
Sure, let's do it. All right, I need to share my screen first.
Well, so I had you as co-host, but since I got booted off, let me see. Nope, you still are. That didn't change.
Okay, screen 1, share. All right, so can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right, good. All right, let me go into, what is it, slideshow from beginning. There we go. All right. All right, so my name is Mike Otranto. I run Wake County Home Buyers. Buy about 20, 25 houses per year. I do fix and flip, buy and hold. I do some light wholesaling. I really like to buy directly from sellers. I buy from wholesalers as well. So if you guys are wholesalers, I put my name in the chat. Houseflow is an education company, and it's a disclaimer that this is for educational purposes only. If you do marketing, you lose money, I am not liable. So just keep that in mind. Now, the contents of what I'm going to talk about tonight, since direct mail is a pretty broad subject, I'm going to try and break it up into, you want to have an idea of what your business model is, what your buy box and criteria are, where to, what pulling a list is, where to get it from, skip tracing, what that is, the actual pieces or the media that you're sending, whether letters, postcards, how frequently you're sending them, how to come up with a general idea of a budget, and then some internet tools. And there's a lot of internet tools out there. So, I'm going to be going over some tools, open letter marketing. I also use PropStream. Now, I don't have an affiliate relationship with any of them. I'm going to be talking about a little bit about Connected Investors. There is a Connected Investor support group via the NCREA, so you're free to use whatever tools that you want. I'm not necessarily endorsing any particular tool. So, direct mail. All right. There's a guy that's pretty well known in the direct mail sales copy industry. His name is Dan Kennedy. He comes up with 3 basic components, and that's basically message, market, and media. So message is what your direct mail piece is going to say. It's the actual sales copy or the copy that's on the piece. The market is really where you're sending it. Or the recipient. For our business, it's basically what type of houses you're sending them to and what type of sellers, motivation signals. The media is basically going to mean, are you sending postcards, you're sending letters, you're sending something creative like flyers, brochures. So we'll review all that. Now, the model that I was talking about is, you have your wholesalers, flippers, long-term rental, and short-term rental. The type of model that you have is going to influence your budget. Also, its sales cycle, how soon you get paid. There are a lot of big wholesaling companies out there that they're very aggressive. They want to cast a very wide net. They might mail out 25, 30,000 pieces per month but that type of a marketing spend is based on the ability to scale an acquisitions team who need leads to be working every single day, and then a dispositions team that needs to be selling deals all the time. I think most of the people on this call are more the individual investors. We're looking for single family, some light multifamily. We could fall into the category of flipper, some wholesaling as well, long-term rental and short-term rental. But the model, keep your investment model in mind, whether you're flipper, long-term rental landlord, or even short-term rental, because that's going to influence a lot of the decisions that you make when you're designing your direct mail campaign. Now, if you've been to my other modules, you've seen me present this. So generally speaking, we're looking at a marketing funnel. So we generate leads via multiple sources. Those are inbound, where prospects contact us, outbound, where we contact the prospect. When we're doing direct mail, we're contacting them because we're sending them something. We filter them out during a sales process, and that's how we qualify them. And then it's always a percentage of those qualified leads that convert. So that's a pretty basic high-level concept. When I first talked about this module early in the year, a lot of people were saying, well, let's do how to do direct mail and how to do the right way to do direct mail. There's different ways to do it. I maintain that there's no secrets. There's always new technologies to leverage, but how to market effectively is kind of like how to build a rental portfolio effectively, or how to flip a house for maximum profit and minimize risk. There's going to be multiple ways to succeed. So there's not necessarily a right and a wrong way, and there's a lot of ways to fail. So I want to give you some flexibility in designing these campaigns. I'm going to try and guide you as best I can. So everything has a pro and a con, a positive and a negative, or a strength, a weakness, an opportunity, and a threat. So with direct mail, you can target very specific houses based on a very specific criteria. So you can pull lists that are comprised of only properties that you want to buy, and then you can always put your website on your direct mail piece, so you can leverage your digital marketing to complement the direct mail as well. The weaknesses are that the conversion rate on direct mail is lower, and it seems to have been decreasing over the past few years. You do get a lot of unwanted calls. Every time I send out direct mail, there's always 4 or 5 people. They're always older, and they always want to have a lengthy conversation as to why they received a piece of mail, rather than just throw the mail out. The other thing is it can be a little difficult to measure. It's effort driven. The term hamster wheel is not my idea, but it basically means that you always kind of have to, it's difficult to automate direct mail unless you do business with a turnkey provider. The other thing is it's a pay per impression model. And what that means is that you have to pay to serve your ad to somebody. So whether it's 50 cents or $1 a piece, you have to pay just to send it to your prospect, and you don't necessarily, if their address is not correct and it comes back, you paid, but they didn't see it. Now with things like PPC, which we're going to get into another module, that's not the case. You only pay when they actually click on your ad. This is the opposite. You have to pay to send it out. You can now the opportunities you can use a lot of data platforms. There's Open Letter Marketing, REI Sift, and there's a lot of companies now that have built robots that actually hand write and hand address your mail pieces for you. They're a little more expensive, but since they build robots to do it, you don't have to pay to someone to do it by hand. Threats, I mean, once a batch is sent out, you have to pay before you send anything. And, if you send 1,000 postcards and you realize you made a mistake and you misprinted the phone number, well, you're out $1,000. So you do need to be careful before you send your stuff out. We're going to talk about how to batch and send it in smaller quantities just to make sure that everything's the way it needs to be. And the other thing is there's no guarantee that a prospect is going to see your piece. So for wholesalers, your buy box is really dictated by your buyer. So I just mentioned manufactured homes, some mobile homes as well. If you are a wholesaler and you have a few of those buyers on your list, then that would be a good reason to target that particular buy box. Everybody here is familiar with the term buy box? Yes, no? Most people are, but just in case, a buy box is really your criteria of the type of properties you want to buy. Wholesalers, a lot of them look for lower end houses, the stuff that's under $100,000 ARV, some of the older houses, you get a lot of those things are built in 1930, 40, 50. They make old rentals. They'll do that because they have people on their buyers list that want to buy it. The thing about wholesaling is it's shorter as a sales cycle, and you get cash that comes in faster. So it's a little easier for them to scale larger direct mail companies. Wholesalers are going to do direct mail on a monthly basis, and they'll have a dedicated money budget per month. Flippers, long-term rentals, direct mail is great for targeting very specific criteria. So if you're like me, you like the manufactureds, but you also like the ranch style houses that are under 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, built definitely after 1970. But for rentals, there's a sweet spot in between like 1990 and 2007 to make great rentals. The good thing about pulling lists is you can pull a list solely of those types of properties. So it does work well for long-term rentals. Now, the longer sales cycle for flippers, it's a longer sales cycle means that I kind of have to finance all this marketing, and then I'll get more money that comes in at the end, but I wait a little bit for it. So you do have to keep that in mind when you're coming up with your budget. Now for long-term rentals, direct mail is great for targeting multifamily properties, especially 2 to 4 units or even apartments in multifamily. Also, it's great for commercial properties, land, mobile home parks, and the search engine traffic is much lower for these types of properties. There's not as many 2 to 4 unit properties. They're not building those things anymore. And the thing is, since there's a very limited supply of it, there's just not that much search traffic that justifies a dedicated website just for 2 to 4 unit properties. So the advantage of direct mail is if you only want to buy duplexes, triplexes, quads, you really like that, you can pull a list of only those properties and you can market to them consistently. All right, short-term rentals. I think short-term rentals are definitely a buzz now. I know we have a short-term rental subgroup. Do we have anybody here that does short-term rentals? And Kathy, you do it. The advantage of using direct mail for short-term rentals is if you like the short-term rentals at the beach, you can pull lists of properties at the beach. You can pull properties that are at the mountains, very specific criteria that happen to work, whether it's a lake property, cabins, that kind of thing. Those work well with direct mail campaigns, because if you want to buy a very specific type of property, you can target that very specific type of property, where it would be much more difficult to sit back and wait for them to come to my website via a paid search ad or just organic. So buy box equals your purchase criteria. So property criteria, how many beds you want, how many baths, square footage, year built, location as well. And the good thing about mail is that you can get very specific on location, subdivisions, style of house. If you want a ranch, you want 2-story houses, split levels, you can get very specific on the type of houses that you want to market to. Also, approximate value, so 50,000 to 250,000, something like that. You know, whether or not you want single family residential, SFR, commercial properties, land, if you want self-storage. That's the property criteria. Then there's the owner criteria. So if you're looking at the approximate equity that they have, how long they've owned the property, more than 5 years, more than 10 years. If you like owner financing, you can target properties that are free and clear, or they've been owned for 30, 40 years. You can also target landlords that own multiple properties based on the amount of time they've owned the properties. There's also something they call them distress signals in the direct mail world. So usually it's vacant, out of state owner. It's also known as absentee owner, pre foreclosures, delinquent taxes, utility shut off, code violations, divorce, or bankruptcy. Each state kind of does it differently. And I noticed that data that's available via public records, how good the data is and how transparent they are is usually dictated by how the county works. I haven't been able to find any utility shutoff or code violations in the proximity of Wake County. I find it interesting, but some states and some cities are different. Some are more transparent about that stuff. And there are some cities where the last time I checked for like utility shutoffs in city of Raleigh, they said that they couldn't share that data because it's private. So, but these are things that you can target because you can look for signs of distress. So when I say list, a list is basically a list of available properties that are based on your criteria. So you're going to have, if you use some of the search parameters we just talked about, you can easily have 10, 20,000 records in Wake County alone. So usually what happens is you pull a list, and then you have to edit down to a number that fits your budget. And that could be, 2,000, a list of 2,000 properties, 4,000 properties, whatever it is. There is a term I'm going to mention called list stacking. And really what that means is you pull a list of a lot of properties, let's say more than 10,000. And what you do is you look for multiple distress signals. For example, if their taxes have gone delinquent, or if it's vacant, or if it's out of state owner, the idea behind that is because multiple distress signals will mean more motivation. Generally, you have to cast a very wide net to get the same property that will appear on multiple lists. But when people say list stacking, that's what they're talking about. Now, where you can go, there's dozens and dozens of sites where you can go to get the list. There's ListSource, batchleads.com. Then there are websites that the only thing they do is provide lists. There's also list brokers that will go out there and find lists for you and then resell them to you. There's also CRMs that will be able to pull lists on your behalf as part of your subscription. REI Black Book is one of them. And I think we have an REI Black Book support meeting. We also have a Connected Investors support meeting. Both those platforms will allow you to both pull lists and I think select postcards or letters and send them directly through the CRM. RealFlow is another one. I've used all three of those platforms. I've also used PropStream. I'm actually using PropStream right now. I kind of like it. I just like how the dashboard is set up. Then there are these other tools like REI Sift. And what REI Sift is very complex. You can go to the website, and I watched a few of the videos on what it is and what it does, and it's so complex I can't honestly describe what it does because it's so complicated. But it's popular with wholesalers that have that, very large marketing budget that are very dialed into direct mail, and they really want to get into the data. So the thing about direct mail is if you really want to target very specific types of properties, you can do that, but the quality, the output is just as good as the input. So generally you want to look for higher quality list providers and better tools, but they're there for you. RE Simply is another one. I think it's RE Simply or REI Simply. Probate Leads are another one. Now, some websites have popped up, alltheleads.com, probateleads.com. What they do is they hire people per county to go to the county records and do the research, and they upload all the data. So you don't have to do that anymore because it's very time consuming. I tried alltheleads.com. I think I only got like 1 or 2 leads. But this was back during COVID when I had to go to Johnston County because due to social distancing, the researchers weren't allowed. They shut down that section of the office. People weren't allowed to go in there and pull the files. So there'll be like a subscription, $200 a month, and then you have a website. But anyway, it's an all-in-one portal. If you really like probate stuff, you can go there and it's turnkey and you can do anything you want with them. There's also all-in-one services, turnkey direct mail providers. Sometimes they call them mail houses as well. You could just tell them the type of properties you want to buy and what your budget is, and they'll do everything for you. All right, Peace. When I talk about Peace Media, it's the same thing. So what we've been talking about getting a list thus far, that's basically the market. That's where you're sending your stuff to. The piece or the media, that's the actual stuff that you're sending. So you have postcards, letters. There's something called a fake check now, where basically it looks like a check, so it gets opened, and then it's an actual offer for the property, and then it's just a solicitation to call, to actually call in to actually get that offer. Then you see a lot of different things. They're always coming up with new types of pieces that you can send out, pamphlets, brochures. I found that postcards and letters, those have been around for the longest and have time tested, though the fake checks are kind of like the new trendy thing that seem to be getting a lot of buzz right now. Letters have higher conversion rates than postcards on average, but letters are more expensive. So if you want to cast a really wide net, a lot of times you use postcards. If you want to do a very targeted list, but you want a better response rate, generally you use letters. So these are some of the little things that you can tweak based on your budget and based on the type of property that you're targeting. Fake checks are a little more expensive. They do have a higher conversion rate, though. I think it's a trend. I think what's going on is with the fake checks, it's kind of like there's something called a yellow letter, and that's been around for a while, at least from the 2000s. And basically, there are several companies that it looks like a legal sheet of paper, and it looks like somebody just took out a Sharpie and wrote a message on it that they want to buy your house, and then it gets put into an envelope and sent out to you, only it's done by a computer. Those have been around for a long time. They have higher conversion rates, but I think what happens is they go in and out of fashion, because what happens is everybody starts doing it, and then the market just seems to get saturated with it and it stops working. So, all right, letters. Yellow letters. There's also handwritten letters by machines, fake checks. You just heard me talk about that. You can do what I did in the late 2000s and very early teens was printed letters, where I printed it out on a computer and I had someone hand address the envelopes for me. Those get opened. Those have a very high open rate, but it's very time consuming. I think for a while I had a couple of students, like college students or high school students, I put a Craigslist up and I paid them 10 cents a letter. The reason why I stopped doing is it's just so tedious with having to go buy all the materials, get them the list, get them to, print everything out and then send out the mail. But if some of you have, I don't know, if you have kids in the house and you get them to do it for free, I mean, it'll save you some money because you only have to pay for stamp and some printing materials. So printed letters will get actual hand addressed letters will get a higher open rate than anything else. You have templated letters, and I'm going to navigate some websites at the end of the presentation and just show you what I'm talking about. Custom letters. Now, the handwritten letters are what I've been talking about by machines. They've developed machines now, ballpoint marketing, even open letter marketing has them, where it's an actual machine that will handwrite the letters. They have a higher open rate. They're a little more expensive. But the funny thing is you can I start to get them now and I look at it a little bit more, but when I see a letter with, it looks like it's handwritten, I can usually tell it's a machine. If I get a handwritten letter, I'll open it almost always, but usually it's from somebody wanting me to contribute money, a local church want me to join, or like some of the hard money lenders have gotten really creative with sending me stuff, and they get me to open it and they say, hey, I've noticed you buy this, this, and this. Come, look at our terms. So people are getting creative with this direct mail. Okay. Open letter marketing, ballpoint marketing. They both have handwritten letter by machine. And this is the machines that write the letters are not new. A lot of companies have them. So Open Letter and then Ballpoint. I misspelled. I put Ballpoint Marketing. It's Ballpoint Marketing. Those are two companies I know of. Postcards. All right. There's several different sizes. I would avoid the smallest size. The little mini postcards, they're cheaper, but I find that the response rate on that is very low. Full color, you have options, full color postcards, one-sided postcards. I think it's similar to the Bandit signs where if you're going to use them, you might as well use the larger one. I wouldn't go cheap on the postcards because if you go too cheap, you're just not going to get any response. I remember there was one type of postcard that was very popular a lot of years, at least 10 years back, where it just said like it was just a printed card and it had all this text on it. And it was the cheapest postcard you can get. And I sent out 2,000 of them. They got like one phone call. So now if you send out a bunch of mail and you only get no response or one response, it could be a lot of different things. It could be the market, the people you're sending it to, the list. But more often than not, if you get a really lousy response rate, it's because the piece just isn't good at converting. So that's why I would avoid the really cheap, small postcards. A lot of marketers I know, a lot of the big wholesalers that spend lots of money on direct mail will use a blend of letters and postcards. They kind of change it up, want to just test. They want to see what gets a better conversion rate. The other thing too is that if you use a blend of postcards and letters, you can bring down your monthly spend a little bit, and that will allow you to add more records to your list and allow you to cast a slightly wider net. All right, bounces, something called a bounce rate. A bounce rate is basically when you send mail to someone and it comes back and says return to sender, unable to forward. I would say there's every batch you send out, you will get some of those. If you get a high bounce rate, that usually means the data is stale or bad. So that's another thing where you kind of get what you pay for, where if you buy a really cheap list, you get more bounces. It's because the person has moved, they've died, the data is incorrect, or what have you. But bounce rate is a thing, and it's something you should take. What I like to do is I like to record. If I send out 1,000 letters, I want to know how many of them came back because it tells me the quality of the list that I bought. Strategy. So it's not necessarily right versus wrong. You do have to look at price versus conversion rate. You have to look at quantity versus quality. Those strategic decisions are going to be dictated by your model and your budget. Wholesalers, they need to keep their acquisitions people busy, so they might need to cast a wider net to get more leads, to get more deals, because they got to keep their acquisitions people busy. So if you're long-term rental, short-term rental, you're probably looking at a more focused, targeted list. So I would go more towards the quality. More towards, let's say, things like letters that convert better, spend a little bit more money and spend a little more time on actually making sure that the list that you're sending to is really the type of properties that you want to buy. Skip tracing. All right, so skip tracing is basically you're searching for data. So whenever I do skip tracing, I'll always put myself on the list. So if you have a list of 1,000 records, the records is there a question? No? Okay. All right. So if you have 1,000 records, a lot of times the data is stale. What skip tracing is designed to do is get the most up-to-date information on those records. So let me give you an example. I like to put myself on the list. And what comes back from the skip tracing software is the first house I lived in when I grew up, and the 2 phone numbers that were associated with that house. Every email I've ever had, including my AOL emails. And I still have AOL emails, but I haven't checked them in 10 years. So they're still active, but I just haven't checked them in 10 years. So what you'll find is with skip tracing is you get all this data, and maybe a small fraction of it is actually good data, because people change their cell phones. They go back and forth between carriers. People get new email addresses. People change some people that have landlines, once they move, they get a different landline. So they're basically going to be companies that research people by name and address, return the contact info. You're talking about alternative addresses, phone numbers, email addresses. Skip trace data is generally more accurate than public records. And I just told you about skip tracing yourself. The thing that I don't like about direct mail, and this is just a personality thing, like I wind up with all these spreadsheets and just so much data. I find it very tedious to go through. Some people like that. Some people really like details. They like spreadsheet. They're very neat and organized. If that's your personality, you might really like skip tracing, direct mail, building your lists. It's really up to the individual. So frequency is another thing. How frequently do you mail to the same list? You're doing it weekly, you're doing it monthly, quarterly, yearly. Some people will send mail on holidays as well. If you're an agent, some people are sending mail postcards on holidays, birthdays, and that kind of thing. The consensus is that, and people that have the big wholesalers, a lot of times they have a monthly direct mail budget, but how frequently they hit each list, usually monthly. Some people will do it quarterly. And over time, what's going to happen is people are going to be asked to remove from the list. They're going to delete bounces. And then when they delete records, they're going to add new ones in. So that's the general strategy. You can do one-off direct mail. And that basically means that you pull a list and you send a bunch of mail to it. I've done a lot of those. Sometimes you get a deal, sometimes you don't. My preferred method of marketing has always been digital. I do believe digital is more efficient. Part of that is personality thing. I generally don't like print. And the thing about direct mail is it's so much data to sift through. I generally don't like doing that. So the tool that I mentioned, REI Sift, is designed specifically to sift through large lists of data and also to skip trace data and find the bounces as well. So if you really want to dive deep into data and look at people that are hard to find, a very robust tool like REI Sift is good for that, but you're gonna have to spend a good amount of time learning how to utilize the tool. There's a guy I met at a national networking event. He's in Arizona. He has a person on Upwork that is very familiar with REI Sift. He does most the virtual assistant does a lot of the sifting, but the investor that I have in mind, he knows enough to kind of manage the sifter. He likes it. Budget. All right. So a large wholesaler that I had a conversation with said that as of now, they're getting one deal out of every 2,800 pieces. So I'm assuming that when they said deal, they meant that a contract on an assignment that actually closes. I think 1 in 2,800 is about what you're looking at. If you use a very highly targeted list, I have gotten better responses from smaller lists, especially in areas where I've already bought a house. So maybe I send out a batch of 500 and I'll mention the fact that I bought the house around the corner. I've gotten deals from that before, but for every campaign that I've done, every small batch campaign I've done with direct mail that I've gotten a deal, there's at least one or two where I haven't gotten a deal. So that's kind of the thing about direct mail. It's very hit or miss. Now you can batch your mailings into smaller batches. I recommend doing that for a couple of reasons. One, if you realize that the phone number is incorrect or not working, especially if you're not using your cell phone, which you really shouldn't be, you can figure it out before you spend too much money. The other thing is if you send out 3,000 postcards, there's been times where I've sent out 3,000 pieces and gotten less than 10 phone calls, but if you get 12 phone calls in the first day, it's easy for one of those leads to fall through the cracks, especially if you're the one fielding the phone calls and you don't have an acquisitions team. So I recommend sending them out in batches. The other thing too is sending them out in smaller batches. It can allow you to scale a little bit since you're not having these large sums of money going out at one time. You can drip them out at once every couple of weeks at, $250, $500 or something like that. So it's a little easier to scale. All right. So the other thing is your sales process. Something called speed to lead, and this is very important. If everyone I've talked to said that direct mail calls should be answered live. I've gotten deals in the past, a very long time ago, where they went to a voicemail first and then I called them back, but they really should be answered live. There's one guy, I heard him speak, and he basically said if a motivated seller gets 3 pieces, they're going to call all 3 pieces, and basically the person that picks up the phone is probably going to get the deal. So I have my assistant that answers my phone for me. What I recommend doing is either use a Google Voice or you can use CallRail, which is a little bit, I think CallRail starts at about $50 a month, but worst case scenario, use a Google Voice number. So, once that Google Voice, voice comes in, to answer it. And the other thing is Google Voice will tell you how many calls you got. So that's going to be your data point where when you send out batches, how many calls came in, what were the phone numbers, when did they come in? Yeah, you have to track your calls. It's also it's also nice to have a texting ability. So sometimes the piece will say call or text, and believe it or not, some people will call you, but I find that most people like to start off with a message first, and they'll text you, say, "Hey, I got your postcard. What's your offer?" Or do you want to buy my house or something like that? And that's good. You could respond and then call them from there. But a lot of times they'll text you first. I am a fan of branded materials where my website goes on the mailing piece. And that's because a lot of people are getting lots and lots of direct mail, but a lot of times they say, all right, well, how do I know this person's legit? So they're going to Google my Wake County home buyers and they're going to look for my reviews and they're going to want to see my website. I have done deals where people have filled out a form on my website and I went back over my direct mail list and found out that they got a piece from me. So the trigger to go to my website was actually the direct mail piece. So, all right, two options: DIY or outsource. If you do it yourself, you can save money. You have more control over the campaign. Direct mail is very DIYable. It's very doable. So if you're on a tight budget, I would say start doing it yourself. It is a little time consuming. You do have to put some hours into, especially with these tools that I'm gonna show you some of them, but there's a lot of choices that you can make. So you do have to put some hours into learning the tools. If you're gonna sign up with REI Black Book or even Connected Investors, there's gonna be time that has to be invested into learning those tools. Outsourcing, I hired turnkey direct mail companies, mail houses. Two of them, I had some of the worst response rates ever. They were terrible, and they were 12 grand each. The wrong manager can waste your money. They want to specialize. I wouldn't even consider any direct mail house that does not specifically specialize in real estate investing. And even the turnkey mail houses I use, they specialized in real estate investing, and their response rate was still terrible. So that being the case, there is one company I know of that they actually coach you on how to do direct mail, but what that means is you're probably going to have a minimum spend of like $5 grand a month or $3 grand a month. If you want their name, I have to research it, but if you want that name, just reach out to me. I'll give it to you. Let's see. All right. So examples of direct mail pieces. All right. So now what I want to do is I'm going to show you. I'm going to go to some of these websites. Okay. So you can still see the screen, correct? You can see the screen? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So Open Letter Marketing, they're one. They're pretty easy to use. They have a chat feature. The guy's name is Jake. He's pretty easy to work with. So you have professional letters. So this is what a professional letter looks like. Now, the only thing is this is technically a templated letter. So you can put a logo there. You can put an image there. These seem to get reasonably consistent response rate. The exterior of these pieces with the blue hexagon and the yellow arrows, people do seem to open these because they seem like bright and cheerful. The other thing is they have templated letters for probate. They have personal letters. So if you can go here, you go to letters. A personal letter is generally like, hey, my wife and I want to buy your house. We're looking to move into the area. I used to get a lot of calls off those, but I found that lately, I think people are getting hammered with those letters because that idea has been around for a while. There's all different types of templates on letters, seller benefits, all that stuff. Now, I haven't done any flyers. I think that's not going to work out too well, but they also have templated postcards. Another home sold is for agents, so we're not going to go there. And you can also choose between the handwritten font styles. So the average cost per piece is about $1. With letters, with postcards, you can get it down to 50, 60 cents. Generally speaking, the larger, the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. So when you get down to 50 cents a piece, that's usually when you're spending like, I don't know, sending out 10,000 cards, something like that. But I would just, if you, for budgeting purposes, I would just assume $1 a piece. Let's see. So they also have something here, return mail scanner. Basically what you can do is when the mail gets returned, you hold the piece up to the camera on your computer and it automatically takes it off your list, or you can skip trace it after that. So that's one thing. I'm growing to like a kind of a one-stop shop, because otherwise what you have to do is you have to go to something like ListSource, buy the list, get it into Excel, edit the list, and then you have to reformat the entire list for the specific company because everyone has their own format. Then you have to upload it, get them to send it out, and then you have to figure out what you do with your bounces. So for example, Open Letter Marketing, or no, I think it's yellowletters.com or Yellow Letters HQ. Like they're good. They have a lot of products. Their prices are good, but they don't pull lists. So then what you have to do is go to like ListSource or something like that, format all that data, upload it. I don't like doing that because there's too many moving parts to it. It just takes too much time. If you really like to do that stuff, you're free to do it. I don't like doing it. Let's see. So let me go in to my prop stream. All right, so this is prop stream. So if I'm going to do like a campaign, and I'm going to go to like a new campaign, let me go to test campaign first. All right, postcards. You can do email marketing as well. I haven't tried that yet, but for the postcards, okay, so 1 to 249, 64 cents each. That's for the small. I wouldn't recommend the 4x6. I would go ahead and do the oversized. But you could see if you get more than 2,000 at a time, you're going to save some money. Not a lot of money, but a little bit of money. You can start with a blank postcard, or you can do a predefined one. And they're going to have a series of, see all these? These are what we mean when we say stock. So we buy houses. How each one is going to convert, it's really difficult to tell. You just have to kind of try it out. But generally speaking, these do seem pretty modern. If you look at this, if you look at the quality of the graphics on it, I think this is a pretty good postcard. In the past, I've done branded postcards, which looked something like this. The problem is that I did this with Vistaprint, and Vistaprint is great for designing something new and unique, but as a direct mail provider, Vistaprint is not good. So that's what I meant about, I can design something in Vistaprint, but then I have a PDF file, and I got to figure out how to convert the PDF file and open, and it's just like too many steps. So I'm more toward take a branded postcard and then try and customize it to make yourself stand out. So, all right, now is the time for questions.
Y'all can unmute and ask questions, or if you're more comfortable, you can put it in the chat, whatever you prefer. This was a lot of great information, Mike. Wow, it's really detailed. Did you guys?
Yeah, I like details. I don't know. It's funny. I like details, but if you put like, there's just something about having to deal with the spreadsheet, reformat it, upload it. I can't stand doing that. I can't take it.
You said
Dennis,
you
do
use,
you have a question?
yes, PropStream. Is
Mhm.
that a CRM also, or that's just
I don't think PropStream is a CRM technically.
No, it is not.
It's more of a
okay?
data tool. I've heard mixed things about it. Some people say the data is kind of stale, but the way you could do it is like once you could do the skip tracing through here, and you can kind of just do everything. The reason why I kind of like it is I did a free trial of it. So I kind of like the dashboard, how the dashboard is laid out. So Connected Investors and REI Black Book will probably be very similar, but I just like the fact that
REI Black Book's different, but Connected Investors is similar, but Connected Investors includes free skip tracing. With
okay,
PropStream, everything's a la carte and you have to pay for it.
okay,
That's why when we were looking at them as a group to decide which one to, partner with for our members, we we looked at PropStream and Connected Investors and chose Connected Investors for that.
So
That's one of the reasons.
yeah, so I can click on you can zoom down, you can zoom down on a map, you can click on. I grew up in Staten Island, so when I see estimated equity of 900 grand, it's like ridiculous. So um
Okay.
yeah, and it's like anything else. Like, what's the difference between Zillow and Redfin? I mean, they're both. If you're going to use them to pull, you're going to ignore the estimate. But I just like how Redfin's dashboard is laid out. But I'm not going to say it's better than Zillow. For the purpose of pulling comps, it's more or less, the actual methodology that you're using. I just kind of like how the dashboard has all the photos and the search engine. So I think that's kind of subjective. But before you start buying stuff, figure out what you want to accomplish first. You're wholesaling, rehabbing, you want short-term rentals. Then what you'll figure out is one, how much money you have to spend, because what I talked about is the $1 a piece. That doesn't include the subscription fee. PropStream is $100 a month, which isn't so bad. I don't know what REI Black Book is, but there's all these pros and cons of, well, all right, REI Black Book does free skip tracing, but
No,
PropStream,
Connected
yeah,
Investors.
Connected Investors does. So, it's a lot of, what's the best tool for me, but all of them should give you at least a 7-day free trial.
Yeah, that is true. And if you're curious, just come on that Connected Investors support call and the
Yeah.
REI Black Book one, and just see, you'll get to see them, take them for a test ride there too, and you can ask a lot of questions about them, and that can help you decide as well.
Okay.
I'm strolling
Any
down
other
memory.
questions?
The funny thing about this is you see this down here? That's a sewer. That's an open-ended sewer. This was woods that me and my friends used to hang out in, and I'm amazed that they demoed this woods in like 2000, and they built houses here, and there's train tracks here, and that train is
Wow.
loud.
You think
That
maybe
train is loud.
you
And
think maybe I see
oh
the
yeah,
train tracks,
yeah,
but
and if you want to live there, you're gonna pay $825,000.
and the sewer is like right by the train tracks?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Maybe they covered
825.
it up or something.
Total return. And look at this. So, but yeah, I kind of like the fact that you can kind of I kind of just like how it's laid out. I mean, would I go to Connected Investors if I tried it? But I'm notorious for, I get excited about a new tool. I go at it crazy for 3 months and then I don't use it for 3 months and I cancel it. And that's just me, which is why I prefer websites, because it's like, it's one thing that I'm in charge of.
That's the reason that when we were deciding which one to partner with, we made it a condition that they had to help us provide education, because what Mike
good.
just said is so true. I had PropStream, Real eFlow for like I paid for PropStream for almost 2 years and never used it because I just didn't get the training. So if you come on the Zoom, you will not be able to help but learn to use it. And
Yeah.
once you learn it, it's so valuable, you'll never want to leave it. But if you don't ever learn, then yeah, it's just another thing to spend money on. Anyone else have questions? We are at an hour. All right, what's up next month, Mike?
I'd have to look now. The website is up to date because I've done the schedule for through the fall.
Okay, well, you just don't remember off the top of your head.
I'm pretty sure it's SEO.
If you're eating up this marketing stuff, and it's so important. I mean, you
Yep,
don't get
SEO.
business without marketing to both buyers and sellers. So next month, Mike will have SEO, which is amazing tool. And remember to come to the main meeting in June. And Mike, have you ever seen Richard Roop?
No, but I'm interested in the AI he was talking about.
Yeah, you would love it. You definitely need to come. He is I met him at the OREA National Summit, and like it's amazing the stuff that you can do. So if you want to learn more about this and learn how to make it easier, and most of the tools are free, then definitely don't miss the June meeting. So hope to see you there. Last call for questions. And I will say before we leave, this meeting was recorded. So if you'd like to watch it again, it is available only to attendees. And the way that you find it is you go to the calendar, click on this meeting, and scroll down. And as long as you were marked as attended, which if you're here, you were, you can access the recording. So right there, what Mike's doing, you click on that. It's not there right now, but when you scroll down, it will be down there at the bottom. It takes us a couple days to get them up.
Yeah.
Because it's got a process, and then we have to upload it to a hosting platform and then upload it again. So give us a couple days and then it'll be there.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you, Mike, so much. That was amazing. Great information. I'm assuming there are no more questions. If not, we'll let you go. Thanks for spending your evening with us, and see you at the next meeting.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
you.